Supreme Court is to promote their own policy, promote their own values. They enjoy legislating from the bench. Conservatives don't really see it that way. We don't actually look at judges as, okay, you're conservative, you're liberal. We look at you whether you're going to follow the Constitution and you're going to interpret the law accordingly. That's the right way to look at a Supreme Court justice. Brett Kavanaugh clearly does that. And there's really nothing to indicate otherwise. This idea that his temperament is bad. His 30 years as a judge, his temperament was laudable this entire time. And then, of course, you attack him with these terrible, terrible accusations, and he gets a little upset about it, and we're all surprised, and we attack his temperament. I just think that reeks of terrible partisan politics.
Todd Linton, 30-second response.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree. The Supreme Court process has become highly partisan, and that's unfortunate. The Supreme Court is that Article III branch of the government. I mean, this is something that should be above politics, but it's been hijacked by the process. And you know, there's no doubt at all that, you know, how we move forward as a country is going to be key. Judge Kavanaugh, I believe, again, he lied about certain things in his past history about, you know, his teenage drinking and things of that nature. But if he's going to lie about stuff like that, we've got to take a big look at this, at the big picture. This is the highest bar to the highest court in the land, and he wasn't a judge for 30 years. He's been a judge for about 10 years. I mean, so, you know, he had a good record, but the ABA dropped him down a level on this. He didn't ask for a full investigation from the FBI last week, and he could have done that. That would have helped us find the truth.
Dan Crenshaw, 30 seconds.
Oh, I get through. Well, listen, going back to these same points, you know, this idea that Brett Kavanaugh's lied about his record in high school, that we should be examining his yearbook and his calendar and examining exactly what he meant by drank too much and what we all mean by drank too much. I mean, can we all just agree that this is getting into really ridiculous territory? I mean, it really is, and I think it's just so transparent and so obvious what the Democrats have done with this. I mean, it's gone beyond partisan politics. It really has, and it's just unfortunate to see.
Okay, next question. Republican candidates across the country are trumpeting the economic impact of the GOP tax cuts, citing historically low unemployment and healthy growth in GNP. Democrats warn that this prosperity has been bankrolled with trillions of borrowed dollars and is highly unlikely to pay for itself by generating additional revenue from growth. Dan Crenshaw, you have expressed hawkish views on government spending. Is the tax cut justified?
Well, listen, if we're going to look at whether the tax cuts are doing good for our economy, doing good for our society, it's best to look at the results. It's best to look at the numbers. So we have 3.9% unemployment, right? That's the best in, I don't even know when we can remember. Over 4% consecutive GDP growth. Also a great number. That creates more business, it creates more investment, it creates more jobs. We have almost 3% wage growth. And Texas, I think, is even better, and especially in Texas, out of the top 15 cities in America with the best economies right now, 5 of them are in Texas. You know why? Because we have we understand that low taxes and low regulation actually work. We're seeing consumer confidence at all-time high. We're seeing that the stock market at an all-time high. We're seeing small business optimism at an all-time high. I don't see how any of these things are bad. Okay, but you asked about the debt. We should absolutely be concerned about the debt. All right, we got half the equation right. Let's cut taxes, but we're not tackling the debt the way we should. Well, let's talk about what actually causes that. Is it really lower taxes? I don't think any Texan believes that their taxes are too low. What it really is mandatory spending. Almost 70% of our spending is on the mandatory side. That's Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and interest on the debt. You know, my generation is going to have to pay for this. Our kids' generation is going to have to pay for this. It's completely unsustainable. And when we're looking at good policy, we have to ask, what is sustainable? You know, what makes sense? What common sense solutions do we need to implement in order to put ourselves on a solid financial and fiscal footing? All right. Again, my generation is going to have to pay for this stuff. So I want to tackle the hard problems. I know my generation is ready to do that. And we need government policies that are sustainable and make sense and that are pro-growth. All right, we never thought we'd actually see almost 3% annualized growth, which is probably what we're looking at for this fiscal year. That was laughed at. Okay, but we're looking at doing it right now. And, you know, I talk to businesses all the time on the campaign trail. They're very happy with where we're at. And I think we should continue down that path. But we do have to tackle spending, so let's do it.
Todd Linton, this massive tax cut, a good thing or a recipe for disaster?
You know, I had problems with the tax cut for several reasons. One, it did blow, a fiscal hole in our budget, which is going to add significantly to the national debt, a couple $1 trillion over the next 10 years. I don't think that makes any sense. There's not one person who can say they're fiscally conservative or even responsible who voted for this tax bill. That's just not the way it works. The other big issues I had with the tax cut in particular were it was so focused on corporations. You know, the stock market's at an all-time high. Corporate earnings are at an all-time high. Those are great things. But why give corporations massive tax cuts and make them permanent? And give people, who I talk with every day out in Texas too, smaller tax cuts, and you don't make them permanent to begin with. They're trying to work on that right now, but they're not permanent yet. So I looked at that and thought, like, why are we doing it this way? We need to help our people get back to where they were before 08 and 09 and the Great Recession that occurred then. Too many people are struggling to get back to those places. If corporations were investing in their people, if they're increasing wages and salaries instead of just giving them bonuses, that would make sense. But for our economy to really get going, we need to invest in our people. We need to make sure they have the skills, the education, the training they need to plug into our economy in a significant way to get real careers and not just, a job job. I mean, this is something where we've got to work to ensure that people are able to get plug in, whether it's through community colleges, whether it's through unions or business apprenticeships, whether it's there are a myriad of ways. I want to create a pipeline of lifelong learning to ensure that people are able to do that and ensure that they're able to find the kind of career they want and need, which provide them those benefits. I don't think we can sustain this by giving all the corporations the tax cuts when they're not investing in our people, when they're just buying back stock or other things of that nature. I'm excited unemployment's low. It's been going down and jobs have been going up for over 90 months. This started a long time ago, not just with these tax cuts. So we've got to look at that. Dan too has talked about, trying to cut Social Security and Medicare and some of these things or privatize it in a way where, it cracks me up how people want to privatize Social Security when the market's at an all-time high. We got to realize it comes down.
Dan, 30-second response to that.
Yeah, again, you brought up the debt. Again, there's ways to tackle the debt. The vast majority of our spending is mandatory side. I've never said cut it. Okay, what I've said is do things like raise the retirement age if you're my age. I don't need to retire at 67, and most people my age agree with that. You can put these programs on the path to solvency. You're attacking corporations. Listen, corporations are a bunch of people who hire a bunch of people. They're our neighbors. Okay, that's what that is. To say they're not investing in our people is fundamentally false. I've actually toured lots of businesses around here who are using their own money to train workers. I mean, it's really an amazing thing. And I'm glad to hear that you'd actually vote with Republicans to make the tax cuts permanent.
Got to leave it there. 20 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, to me, again, it's just about investing in our people. How do we invest in our people to allow them to get the skills, the training they need to be able to plug in and get a solid career for themselves and for our kids in the future? Automation is real, and what's going on with outsourcing of jobs, those things are not coming back. We've got to ensure that we're doing that moving forward.
Okay, lots of schools in the 2nd Congressional District. Keeping in mind the rash of school shootings, what would you do to improve student safety, and should new gun control measures be part of the formula? I'm going to go with Dan.
Well, first of all, it's absolutely heartbreaking for any parent to imagine sending their kid to school and not feel that they're going to be safe. We want solutions that aren't just going to feel good but actually do good. So we have to talk about what those might be. Let's start. And let's also keep in mind, too, that you have to protect the rights given to us or protected for us by our government, which includes the Second Amendment. I want to know that when I was on deployment, my wife could defend herself, okay, and to defend our home, because I wasn't there. But we have to talk about what to do with our schools and how we might accomplish that. So looking at things like psychological first aid. Are we giving our schools the resources they need to help kids who are obviously having trouble? Okay, we need to look at that. We need to look at ways to make our schools more secure, in a physical security sense. Okay, maybe that means a single point of entry. Maybe that means providing ways for teachers to create barriers. Maybe it's more armed guards on a school campus. In the end, that has to be decided at the school level itself. We also have to look at other creative ways to invoke our legal process to actually do some good here. All right, first of all, let's enforce the laws we have. That often is the culprit every time we see a shooting like this. But there's other ways, too. What about like a gun violence restraining order? That idea is gaining a lot of traction where Basically, you see all these red flags taking place that could have been prevented, but there's no legal process in place to actually say go confiscate that person's weapons. Well, you could actually create a process where a teacher, or doctor, or parent could say, listen, judge, here's all the issues. We should actually confiscate weapons. That really takes it down to the local level instead of infringing on everyone's rights to defend themselves in order to solve this problem. We don't need to conflate the two issues.
Todd Litton, school